In Afro 1, we were limited, and the blend of cultures didn't show very clearly. This time, we took out the restrictions and didn't hold back.
In Afro 1, probably we achieved only 40% of what we could have done because of this cultural difference.
We try very hard because this is something new and we don't want the audience to feel a sense of awkwardness. The production team strongly feels that if we're going to do something, we do it right.
Basically, we started with the assumption that the series targeted the North American audience. So as you can see from the title of Afro Samurai, it's based on a samurai action story. But this time, we threw in more elements that are more easily recognized by a North American audience as urban or hip-hop.
When I saw some of the new series animation for the first time, it made me laugh. I said, "Kizaki, it's too much, it's too crazy." But it continued till the end. I think this animation will go down in history. First, to develop the script, all three of us, the director, Kizaki, the producer, and I, we had meetings and detailed discussions every week for quite a long time.
I'm excited because it's not often that we are offered a sequel. Also, in Afro 1, the script was already there when I started. But for Afro 2, I was able to get involved earlier in the process, at the script development stage. I was quite happy.
When we were developing the story, what I remember is, every week we would brainstorm random ideas. Kizaki was talking about how he likes the show American Chopper, so we suggested the idea of putting a motorcycle in the story. When talking about different plot points, we were thinking of using many more bikes. Afro had one. Many other characters rode them too. At one point in time, it was becoming like a bike fest.
During Afro 1, we were groping around. I mean, we depended on Okazaki so much, and we worked within the frame of a Japanese samurai's time period. But this time we decided to break the barrier of the traditional samurai tale and mix together different cultural elements.
Afro 1 had a unique worldview. We had detailed discussions about the world of the samurai and what kind of style it would have. For example, would there be neon lights in the bar or not? Are there going to be any cars? What would the characters do or not do? What will be acceptable? What kind of detailed worldview we would establish, because at the time, I was the only one who knew these types of things. So during Afro 1, I needed to discuss these kind of issues with Mr. Kizaki.
If I think of it deeply, it makes me confused. I think the story itself carries on in the worldview that I create. I play with different ideas. Like after World War III, would we as a culture go back to using clubs as weapons because it cannot be a modern design any longer? Even though the world has declined, samurai exist and modern devices like cell phones are used, which gives the sense that both old and new worlds intermingle with each other. I try to imagine that I am in the world and try to create what I would see.
At the beginning of Afro 1, it was difficult. My hobby became my job. I felt awkward knowing that someone else besides me was writing Afro. I couldn't compose my thoughts at first, but when I saw Kizaki's continuity and his work, and how he made it the best way it could ever be, I wanted to leave it up to them. Now, I will draw manga in my own little corner. When the script was almost finished, I made the original designs of the characters and asked Mr. Ejima to make the designs for anime. When Kizaki made the main storyboard, I would check it. To check his work sounds so arrogant. I mean, I would just look through it.
Well, compared to Afro 1, a highlight in Afro Samurai 2, I think, was that director Kizaki himself did all of the storyboards. You can see that there's more of a unified feel to Afro 2 because of the fact that director Kizaki did it all himself.
Well, when in the stage of developing the script, we work on drawing a few storyboards, and that changes the script itself. It does bother me a bit, but I used to be an animator myself, so I have an idea of how action needs to be structured and visualized, or how a scene should be in place so it makes the climax work. Transferring ideas into actual pictures is challenging, and it is troublesome for me, but once I start drawing, I enjoy drawing, so I'm not suffering too much from it.
I'm very glad Kizaki was able to create all the storyboards this time. He's very talented and very good at drawing. He is so good at what he does, and he always wants to use my original designs. Whenever he got confused, he would often check it out with me. I would tell him to do whatever you like with it, and I'll be happy. On top of that, drinking with him is fun.
I rewrite Okazaki-san's original picture for animation in order to make it easier to draw, and I also create any new characters that were not in the original comic. The character that is created by the original designer is hard to animate in motion. Lines need to be taken away. However, in Afro Samurai, we didn't take away that much, so it appears naturally from every angle, and of course, what Okazaki-san created is the most important. But we consider Kizaki-san's approach when we create the design. For Afro and Ninja, we didn't change the design at all, but for Kuma, we added shadows under the eyes, and for Jinnosuke inside Kuma's helmet, we altered him a little bit to show the progress of science. It was very small changes, such as the tubes that came out of his nose. Those are gone because he no longer needs them. What was a challenge at the character design stage was the villain, Sio. We tried not to make her too evil, however, she still needed to appear villainous. The cultural differences always play a role. Afro is black but is dressed as a samurai. In Afro 2, the character Sio wears an outfit that is part of a kimono, where the kimono belt is used as a skirt, and she has Western-style boots. In Afro 2, Okazaki-san himself makes an appearance. He's one of the spectators in the gambling house, Non-Non.
My job starts after the planning process is completed. Then we move on to the early stages of production, creating the core look and style of the world where the story takes place. I make the image boards and the specific location for each scene. I'm the art director, but I also design the backgrounds. Both processes are started at the same time. Working on Afro Samurai is different from a traditional series. For instance, with the Sannoji Club, Brother Three's Club, and Harisu, the Old City of Harris, you can really see a level of detailed work that we don't have time to present in a regular TV series. On a TV series, we usually have only 1 or 2 weeks to make hundreds of backgrounds. On Afro, we didn't have the same time constraints and were allowed to really focus on quality. When we made Afro 1, we were too conscious of the historical drama which we designed it around, and it was very mild compared to Kizaki's vision. So in Afro 2, I tried to infuse it with wilder designs and blends of cultural elements, more in line with Kizaki's work in order to shock the audience. For the root scene of the Sannoji Club, the roof had the image of the battleship Yamato. For Harisu, it was not by the order of the director, but I imagined it like the battleship was floating in the clouds. I wanted it to appeal to a Western audience.
My job is to consider the colors and how they will impact the scene, and not what is happening in the story. For example, in an unpleasant kind of scene, I decide on the colors that give such an impression. In the first series, the assembly of colors was kept toned down, close to grayscale. In the second series, we had fewer restrictions, and so we used many more colors. This made the process much easier. The bridge scene was the first artboard that I finished. I think that scene set the direction for the overall tone. First, we made the sky a very bright blue. In the first series, the blue sky was represented by a color that was close to gray, but in the second series, we used a very strong, deep blue. For other parts, such as the color of the river, that was toned down quite a bit for how a river would appear under such a deep blue sky. I wanted to give the impression that the bridge scene was not realistic and that it was somewhat out of place or something strange. Since it was also in a dream setting, I aimed to make the atmosphere different from reality.
My job is to design the color that designates the color of the characters. We adjust the character against the completed background and also decide on the color to match the background to achieve the best look. In ordinary animation, we make a standard normal color in the beginning, but Afro didn't have that, and the normal color for Afro was more of a monotoned color. But we have the image color for each of the characters' clothes, so I used it as a base. At the same time, I chose colors that would not destroy the scene. Also, it's an experimental world. Depending on each scene, we tried to do the impossible, things that haven't been seen before in other animation. An example of something experimental we might do, I guess, would be the scene with the nightmare. The director gives us a specific order, like a red or blue image, and Afro would normally be colored with a toned-down red or blue. However, the background was very vivid and beautiful, so we went over it with the kind of colors that wouldn't normally be used in the series.
There were so many people involved with this project that, to tell you the truth, I'm not even sure of the exact number. But just counting the animators alone, I think it's close to 200 people. There were also many other people involved, such as the production staff, artists, painters, etc. On a production this size, we have to outsource a great deal of the work, so many of the people involved didn't even end up on the credits. Finding animators can sometimes be difficult. However, Afro 1 had already been released, and it had made a reputation in the animation industry as a unique title, which is rare in Japan, so it was relatively easy to find animators to join this time.
After we finished Afro 1, I heard from director Kizaki that the animators enjoyed working on the project very much and enjoyed contributing ideas. I'm so happy that everyone offered their own views of Afro, so we wanted them to throw in a lot of their ideas again in Afro 2.
The director oversees the composition of the movements on screen, and the animation director is responsible for the total balance of the pictures. After all, each animator has a different style, so it needs to be unified as one work. How can I say, I unify the quality of the animation?
We have many animators who have such unique personalities. One of the good things about Afro Samurai is that it's a magnanimous title and has so much flexibility, which brought together every animator's uniqueness and made it a better project.
It's the job of one group of animators to draw the backgrounds, while another group hand draws the character cells. Our team puts together these different elements. Then we add light and texture to the screen to make a finalized picture. The screen impact comes from the movement of the hand-drawn animation. When we add on the texture, we increase the layers, which also increases the impact of the screen so the picture looks balanced. When animating in HD, the resolution gets higher and the graphics get bigger. On top of that, when the camera work is developed in 2D form, the background also needs to become bigger in order to match it.
Every week, from morning to night, we stayed at the Gonzo studios. Even after work, we were drinking and still talking about the script. It felt like boot camp.
Well, I did get some sleep, but there were always problems that rose up, and that made me worry many times. Including those problems, I had so much fun. Ironically, that contributes to having a really good time creating animation. It has its role.
Quite often we need to work long hours. It's common for there to be multiple retakes for just one shot.
This goes for any title. There is never enough time. However, there are many good points for having such a limited time frame. We can warm up and concentrate to make the best out of the situation. Afro Samurai is the kind of project where every moment helps out everyone involved because of its tight schedule, and I think that it shows well in the film.
Well, the biggest challenge is that all of the lines and dialogue are in English, and it's not because the language itself is difficult. While working on the script or throughout the other processes, we felt the culture barrier more than the language barrier. And Kazaki-san never lived in the States and had never even spoken the language before. So we were constantly consulting with Jamie, who was the sound supervisor, and also with Leo Chu from Spike, and of course the international team. While editing or checking the sound, we always confirm with them our intentions and if it worked out in the English context or not.
Well, for communications with the US staff, fortunately we have good translators, so we didn't have much trouble. However, to match mouth flaps to the English dialogue created a lot more work, so the actual work itself was hard.
Of course, there's also the issue of pronunciation of words and how to properly animate the mouths. Japanese people do not open their mouths wide or bite their lip in order to pronounce words. However, in English pronunciations, it occurs often. We have 3 different patterns for mouth flaps: closed mouth, open mouth, and half-open mouth. This is not enough for the English pronunciations, so the amount of work increases. Since all of this is unfamiliar to us, it is hard to do. At first, we were thinking of doing all the production in Japan, but we realized it would be quite difficult. We then requested an American company to help us with the mouth movements, so we could be sure that we were making everything flow as smooth as possible.
Actually, we always wanted to do collaboration. We had an LA office specifically for that purpose, started in 2001. And then Afro was found 2002, so, at the beginning, of course, we didn't have that type of project, but we were, actively looking for that type of project.
This was our first title that from the beginning was targeting the North American market, which was emerging as a potentially profitable demographic, but it still seemed risky. And to my understanding, the name Gonzo actually means crazy in Italian. One of the founders for this company, named Taguchi-san, wanted the name because he thought the meaning was to not be overly clever. I personally think that it's just like Gonzo to not shy away from unique projects and to take on risky and challenging titles.
While making Afro, I thought that the cultural differences meant so much. Just the little things made it totally different. We had the Japanese side of the project making suggestions for the American side, as well as the American side making suggestions. It felt like a constant battle. It's a new way of making something, and I also think that more projects should be done in the same way.
I think that this was a really experimental project at the time, and I hope to see an increase in this type of work. And then I started to see examples of this type of collaboration with titles like Highlander for Madhouse, the animated sequences in Kill Bill, and our own Witchblade. Projects like these greatly influenced Afro Samurai, as well as the staff that worked on it, and I personally hope to see more of this type of work in the future.
Of course, we would like to continue making Afro Samurai, as well as other projects that are created in the same style. As long as there are opportunities to collaborate with others, I don't see any reason why we would stop now.
At the beginning, especially Afro One, it was a very painful process. But then, we are learning and then we are getting there. We can feel it.